Hello, depending on where your location is today. Today I have Betty LeNoir, I always point this way, joining us. And
Hello.
she is iced in Missouri. So it's very cold right now, very iced over there. Anyway, we are excited to have Betty here today, and we'll be talking with her about Called to Peace Ministries support groups. She is a support group leader training, as well as we'll be weaving this into today's campaign and our topic of what is the hardest thing for a woman to overcome when she is walking through domestic abuse. And we will go further into that in this interview. But while we're waiting here, if you have any questions about support groups, go ahead and drop them in the comments below. If you are a support group leader, say hello. If support groups have blessed you and you've been a member of a support group, say hello too and tell us what support groups have meant to you. I know that would be encouragement to the leaders and Betty as well, and Pam, who are watching, who have worked really hard in preparing training for leaders of support groups. So we'll go ahead and get started today. I'll let Betty introduce herself to you.
I'm Betty LeNoir, and I've been involved with Called to Peace since 2017. I attended a conference that was held in Raleigh, and met Joy and had a chance to just see what the whole ministry was about. And I love that it's grassroots, that it started local and it gradually expanded. And maybe 2 years ago, I talked to Joy about doing a support group on Zoom, and then things have just snowballed from there.
Wow. And Betty and I met in early 2019. And she's been a mentor and friend to me, and I was telling her before I started here, she's spoken so much truth to me, and so many times I've called her and she's listened and helped me process. And so many times things I'm writing she crosses my mind as somebody who really spoke a lot of truth to me. And so I'm really excited that she's here today. And I know a lot of the people are like, oh, I love Betty on the He Makes All Things New retreat, and are excited that you're here as well. So we'll go ahead and get started. In a recent conversation, you shared with me that the most difficult aspect of healing process for survivors is letting go of crushed dreams and hopes, then opening themselves up to God's love to satisfy and heal the hearts. We all know cognitively that God's love is enough, but why do you believe that process of letting go is so difficult?
As Christian women, we are very committed to our calling as a godly wife. Our commitment is to God first, and most of us see our husbands as a gift from God, uniquely to us. And but along with that commitment comes a scenario that we build. It's a picture of a godly home and a healthy environment for the family. For me, that included the certainty that God was obligated to make that happen. My part was to do my best to love my husband well, to pray for him. So we're not just letting go of desires and hopes. We're facing the truth that our earnest work and prayers and silent pain won't yield the result we were certain would happen eventually. Mm-hmm. That certainty is built on what we've been taught are God's promises to us. So facing the truth of my marriage felt as if my life foundation was being ripped out from under me. Living a life structured by Christian disciplines was my life foundation. Hang on. So the hope that we lose isn't hope in our husbands. It's our hope in God.
Wow.
And I think that's why it's so hard to turn to God with the pain.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I'm just thinking about that and letting that sit for a minute. Wow. So true. So true. But I love the fact that there is hope. Like you always tell me, it feels like a death, Lauren, because it is a death. Sit in it, feel it, because out of that rises new life. And that's what you're doing through the support groups. And I love that. What do you share with your support group about how the daily process of letting God satisfy can be enough to heal our hearts?
In Joy's book, the Call to Peace workbook is what we're using in the support groups, there's 2 chapters that are pivotal. One is called Knowing God, and the other one is Finding Your Worth in God. First, knowing God, not just knowing about him. For me, it was a major shift. It was a shift from, and it actually, Joy was really instrumental with me in this, but it was a shift from studying about him and living my life based on Christian disciplines to a true relationship, an experiential relationship with Jesus. And for most of us, believing that his heart's toward us, that he really works in our best interest, is a doubt and conflict because we base that on our experience that's been so disappointing.
Yes.
And then to find our worth in God and how he loves us and sees us, it's just a deep spiritual struggle. It's not an event. It's a process, but we need each other to move into that because it's very, very painful. Post-traumatic growth has its foundation in knowing God and in knowing my worth to him. And so for the Call to Peace study, those 2 chapters are essential to grasp.
Yes, and we're also going to be talking a lot about that at the retreat as well. So I'm excited about that and theming on that. And I love what this support groups is doing. What you're just talking about is going down to the foundation and healing in our spirits and in our core, our relationship with God. And that's the focus of our retreat as well, as we'll talk more about at the end. But I love that. And that's what I feel like is so unique about Called to Peace's support group is its focus is on spiritual healing and those depths. A deep part of us is where a lot of these things lie. Our worth, our sense of fulfillment, our identity, restoration of our soul all comes from a relationship with Jesus. And if that area of our life is blocked and hindered, it doesn't matter how much we know, it won't heal.
Right.
And I love that about the support groups and what you're doing with that. We've also, I was just going to say, we've had a lot of women go through a lot of other training and support groups, and then they come through ours and they're like, I've been out for X amount of years and done X amount of work, but it wasn't until I went through your support group that I really found the healing that I needed, because it was the missing piece that they had never gotten, was the spiritual healing and dealing with the root issues you just mentioned. If you're a survivor now watching this on a further path of healing and fulfillment with God and desire to assist other women in their recovery, leading support groups is a wonderful way to mentor and walk with other women recover from abusive relationships. I personally have not led one. I've got to see one with somebody recently, and it was really amazing to see the transformation that happens in people's lives through the support group. It was very rewarding. I'm curious, what qualities what personal qualities are needed to lead a support group?
Okay, I want to say first, we need leaders. So
yes,
if God is nudging you, and this is an area that you feel like he might be calling you, I want to encourage you to fill out the application form and just take a step toward learning about being a small group leader, a support group leader for Call to Peace. There are some qualities that are necessary in order to effectively lead a support group that's made up of women in coming out of or recently out of abusive relationships. The first thing is that your life needs to be stable. Your housing needs to be predictable. You need to have consistent internet access. You need a computer or a tablet that's available. You need to be having very little drama in your own relationships, and your life must not be in crisis. Then the other thing to look at closely is, do you have the time, the energy, and the margin to invest in leading a group?
Yes. What would you say about somebody's spiritual depth? Where should they be in their walk with Christ?
We'll get that in a minute.
Oh, sorry.
We'll get there in a minute. Okay. All right. We will talk about that. All right. So that's stability with your own life. You also need for your emotions to be stable. And so that would be not easily triggered. Most of the time you respond rather than react. You're able to hear the story of another lady without interjecting your own story. And you understand boundaries and you're using them. And then we'll get to spiritual depth.
Sorry.
That's all right. You need a true relationship with Jesus. You need conviction that God's word is healing, determination to apply God's word with compassion and grace, and a heart that's turned toward prayer. The ladies in your group need you to pray for them.
Mm-hmm.
And then a knowledge of abuse. And I think the first step is to read Joy's book.
Yes.
And then you need to have compassion for those who are walking out of abuse, but not be a fixer. You need to be able to support ladies as they make their own decisions. And then last on the things that I listed was that the conviction that you're called by God to learn about leading support groups for women who've been abused. It's a unique group of ladies. And the ones who join the support groups are the ones who are focused on growing. And it's a unique opportunity. It's sort of a window of opportunity when they are hurting for them to turn toward Jesus. Mm-hmm. And he places them in those groups. It's really amazing.
Yes. And it's neat to see who he places in a group. When we did one recently, like several people that had similar stories or different backgrounds, it's kind of neat. It's like, wow, God, you really handpicked this group. Like you put these people together and the friendships that they were able to build out of it too. And the unique connections that they have.
Exactly. And it is a God thing because mostly they're placed in groups according to the leader's time and their time. Mm-hmm. So, if you can come to a Saturday night group and there is a Saturday night group, then you go in the Saturday night group. But God is working behind the scenes.
Yes.
He's at work where we don't see it.
Yes. I'm still friends with girls that I went through my support group with 4 years ago. So it meant a lot to me, and you really connect and build that sense of community, even if you don't see each other all the time. It's still running to each other at the retreats and other places. How can she know if she's being called by God to lead a support group? What does that calling look like?
I think for each of us, a calling from God's very personal. For me, if an opportunity continues to present itself and I prayerfully consider it, and if God's given me the ability to grow into it, I'll take a few steps forward and see what happens. But I did list a few things that I think are part of being called by God. One is just a God-given interest and a curiosity about the healing process for abused women. Be drawn toward hurting, confused, and crushed people. Non-judgmental toward those who are stuck in their life situation and not able to move forward yet. Yes. You need to enjoy the small group setting, and you need to be okay with having a ministry that's really behind the scenes. If working behind the scenes appeals to you, being a support group leader is definitely part of that role.
Yes. Can you tell me a little bit about the role of a support group leader?
Support group leaders, not a counselor, not a coach, not an advocate. Okay, so set all those things aside. It's just facilitating the group discussion in a small group setting. The material we discuss is the Call to Peace book and workbook. And the ladies in the group study the material before they show up. And then the meeting is used to discuss the material that they've studied the week before. So the leader keeps the discussion on topic and then points out the important points of the lesson.
That sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, and there is, group dynamics is an important part. And part of our training will help you with the group dynamics. Like, what do you do with somebody who talks all the time? What do you do with somebody who never speaks up? anyway, there's lots of group dynamics involved in this, but that's part of the training that we give the people interested in becoming leaders.
That is so awesome that you're offering this training to women and they can actually understand and step into this role, because it's so important to us, as you know, at Called to Peace Ministries, that we are training quality support group leaders that are able to implement what Joy's heart was, and now your heart and Pam's
Mhm.
heart, originally for this support group, and what it looks like and what that was like, and being able to train. And so I'm really excited about that. Can you tell me a little bit more about what training you offer a woman?
Okay. Before you become a support group leader, you must participate in a group and study through the material.
Mhm.
When you fill out the application, one of the questions is, have you completed a support group or not? So go ahead and do the application, even if you have not been through a support group. After you apply as a leader, you'll be placed in a support group as a leader in training. So the group leader will mentor you, and as the group progresses, will give you more leading responsibilities. It's important that you participate in the study, that you do the material, that you show up during this time when you're the leader in training. And then after that group ends, you'll be asked to decide if you feel ready to lead a group yourself. If you feel ready to lead maybe as a co-leader, or if you just want to go back through the study again on your own for more personal growth. And it may be a time in your life where, you know, the timing doesn't work out, but you would like to lead eventually. So it's filling out the application form is not a commitment to lead a group. It's a commitment to learn about leading a group and a commitment to being trained.
Yes. I like that. That's good to know. So sometimes it's okay to go in there. I saw somebody said with humility, humility is part of the role as well. Let God use you. You don't have to know everything or feel completely equipped. But it's like taking that step forward and going into the training and seeing what God says and what God shows you. I heard you mention co-leader. Can you tell me a little bit about that? What is the role of a co-leader?
Sure. Co-leaders are wonderful. The co-leader is there as a support for the leader. They can fill in if the leader needs to be out. The co-leader is a prayer partner and helps keep the conversation and the discussion on topic. They also notice those subtle cues that the leader might miss. And that's really important to
I
be
love
there.
that.
And then, you know, the co-leader may find after she's been a co-leader that she feels ready to start leading. We do our very, very best for every group to have a leader and a co-leader, because it's just a healthier group that way.
Yes. And it is a lot for one leader to try. I mean, they can do, but like having that co-leader in there to be a prayer partner and notice certain things or to be able to bounce things off is really helpful.
Yeah, and sometimes the co-leader will do more of the logistic stuff. Like I got a text this morning from my co-leader, and she said, "Do you want me to send out Zoom, the Zoom link for the meeting tomorrow night?" And so while I was getting ready for this, she sent out the Zoom link to our group for tomorrow night. So it's also just working together to make the group happen.
Yes. I like that. What support do you offer to your support group leaders?
On the Call to Peace site, and you'll be given that link, Joy has taught, she has videos of her teaching each one of the lessons in the workbook. And she adds extra material in there, usually a few extra scriptures. And so those are available. My first couple of times leading groups, I always watch those before the lesson, because it gave me a picture of her heart for that particular lesson. And then we'll be offering regular Zoom discussion groups where we'll talk about group dynamics, additional insights to the lessons, additional scriptures. And then Pam is the support group coordinator for Call to Peace. And she is available by email, and then usually we'll answer with phone calls too. And she'll help you troubleshoot and discuss challenges. And then both of us are willing to meet with your group for a couple of sessions if you feel like you need more support.
That's awesome. Yes, and I heard you mention Pam. Yeah, Pam is our Call to Peace Ministry support group leader and coordinator, and she is wonderful. We are so grateful for her and all the work that you and her both are doing together. Um, what have you found is the most rewarding aspect of being a support group leader?
I love this part. It's partnering with Jesus in the life of hurting women. I get to help them pay attention to who he is for them.
Mm-hmm.
For a long time, I pictured my hard period, and it was even a year and a half after my divorce. I still felt like there was this really dark tunnel, and Jesus was the light at the end of that tunnel. And somehow I had to get through that darkness. But I kept walking into it and backing back out again because it was too hard and too scary. And to help them pay attention that he's with them as they're walking through that long, dark tunnel. And that amazing miracle, the miracle that unfolds every time is these groups are made of ladies who don't have healing, healthy relationships, and they don't have the experience to develop them. But healing in relationship happens in these groups.
Yes.
And God places ladies in each group and they support each other. And it's really, there is no judgment. I mean, you would be amazed at the things that people share and are not judged and are safe. And so for me, it's just a beautiful privilege to be there.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That is so neat and so rewarding, I'm sure, to help another woman connect with Jesus. And that's not just a one-time thing. When you're helping her connect with that, that's for the rest of her life to continue to guide her. And that fruit lives on, that God is doing in her life through you helping her connect with him. And that's really cool.
And I thought of one more thing. You asked about calling. I've found that when I'm functioning inside of what God has called me to do, and it may not be a lifelong calling, it may be a calling for this time in my life, it gives me energy. It energizes me. It doesn't drain me. And so I think that's an indication of calling too.
That is a really good perspective. I love that. That is so true. Very, very true in life of everything like you feel called to do. Sometimes it's hard, maybe it's difficult, but there's always that energy and that passion. Walk away just so fulfilled in doing what God's called you to do.
Exactly. In the process, he energizes us.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. That's really amazing. And since we're ending here, I wanted to mention Betty will be at a retreat. You will be at Georgia Schaefer's table mostly, correct?
Mostly, but I think we're also going to set up a support group table where people can come and ask questions about support groups. So I'll hang out there too.
Yes. So if you're at the retreat, you can come to our support group table. You can find Betty and meet her in person. And we are excited about the retreat. It is coming up very soon in April. And if you have not registered to attend yet, please do. The early bird special ends February 6th. So today's the 4th. That's Sunday. You have 2 more days to save $50. And also, I'm sure you're noticing on Facebook, we have a campaign going on right now. We are in the process of raising scholarships for women who cannot afford to attend the retreat. A lot of times, as you know, when you leave domestic abuse and you're starting over, you don't have the financial resources to attend a retreat or anything extra. And so we want to not ever turn people away because of cost. And so we want to be able to provide scholarship for them. So we are in the process of trying to raise $30,000 this month to provide scholarships for women to attend the He Makes All Things New Women's Retreat. So we are really excited about that. So if you can come, please sign up. Maybe even consider, if you're able at a place, to pay it back to another woman who is much newer out of the healing process, more than likely, and not in a place to financially afford to go. Maybe you can even pay it back and say, hey, I want to help sponsor you to go through too. And yeah, I met some of the women that were scholarship last year, and that was incredibly rewarding to me to hear them talk about that. They're just like, it meant so much to me. I was in a place of desperation. There's no way I could afford this. And like just hearing their story was really incredible. And I know sometimes we don't get to hear their story, but we will be sharing testimonies throughout the month of women that were scholarships and what all that meant to them, just in a season of darkness, to be Jesus to them and allow Jesus to come and speak to them. It's going to be a really awesome retreat, and we are very excited. And we mentioned Georgia Schaefer. She will be one of our speakers there as well. And Betty and Georgia are connected and do some work together. Is there anything else you would like to add? I'm not seeing any questions.
Not that I can think of. I noticed that Tina mentioned that let God use you. You don't have to know everything or feel completely equipped. That is so, so very true.
Yes.
Available is the important thing.
Yes. And I think sometimes when we feel called to do something, I was just randomly having my mind, it's so often I think of Moses and I think of myself, even when I felt called to do something by God, and I was like, but I can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes God calls us to do things that we're like, I'm not a good public speaker. I'm not a good group leader. I'm not this. But when God calls, you know it's your calling, and you're just going to go and do it. And you're going to find that God will equip you to do what you're called to do. And that's amazing because he gets the glory, because you know he equipped you and he's going to flow and work through you to do this. And you'll walk away energized too. But we are in need of support group leaders. So I'm going to also drop in the link. I saw Pam was mentioning that above. I will put a link to sign up to become a support group leader. We have a registration form on our Call to Peace website, so you can just go there and register. Doesn't mean you're automatically a support group leader. It's you're registering for the training. So I will put that link in there too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's so good to see you. I can't wait to see you at the retreat, and hopefully we see a lot of the other people that are joining us today at the retreat as well. So I hope all of y'all are having a good day, and we hope that the ice thaws in Missouri for you very, very soon, Betty.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we will talk to everybody soon and sign up for the retreat. I'll also put that link in the comments above too. Hope you all guys have a good day. Bye.
Goodbye.